Hello and welcome to TMEA Trumpet Tips, episode number 2. Today we're going to cover Wurm Etude number 26, measures 13 through 21. Just a brief chunk today. We're going to continue on from episode 1. That's TMEA Etude number 1. Again, Wurm 26, starting in measure 13, and we're going to measure 20. I'm going to start with playing that chunk, then I do the same thing. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to tell you and show you what I'm doing, and maybe you'll find some effective practice strategies as you go. Measure 13 to measure 21. So just that brief little chunk today, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean in this way as I'm speaking to the microphone, and I'm going to try to play away from the microphone since I don't have a speaking mic and a playing microphone with me. So we start out measure 13 for a couple measures, and we're playing in F major. Okay, we went from D minor to the relative major of F major. Again, that scale would be something I would practice a lot. First of all, the D, natural minor, and harmonic minor that we were talking about in episode 1. This one would be just plain old F major. And the arpeggio F, A, C, F. We do start off with that F major arpeggio. You can use the fill in the blank thing that we did in measures 1 and 2, and again in measures 5 and 6. Just in F major, keep the scale. Just filling in the blank, moving the air forward, same as we did working on measures 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. You can also go to Arbin, page 125 again, where we did the D major, D minor thing last time. This time the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th one down with the 1 flat is the F major Arbin. Page 125 study that you could use. Keeping the support in the corners, that was my issue last time. I let it get a little bit too relaxed in the corners, right? So keep that firmness, that support in the corners. Don't let it get floppy. There's a written repeat. You can take that or not. A lot of times I do take that repeat. A lot of times I don't. Just depends on what I'm trying to get done that day. But that would be a wonderful starting point for the first couple measures, 13 and 14 of the. And we can use the fermatas again as well. You can use them on the first or last note of the groupings, right? The first note of the grouping would be. Right? And then you can reverse that to the last note of the grouping, the lower note, right, where you want to use some downward energy, that analogy of throwing the ball downward. The harder you throw it downward, the more energy you use throwing it down, the easier it is going to be to spring up higher. So either one of those, same way we worked on measures 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. Moving on from there, measure 15 and 16, we go into a C major arpeggio. So the first step with that, let me play those two measures slowly, 15 and 16. Carefully articulation, which we'll get into in a minute, but step 1 there would be just play the C major scale and arpeggio though. I would recommend taking that up at least to the G, since the G, the high G, is part of this arpeggio, this broken arpeggio. Any kind of combination you can think of that C major scale and arpeggio. Then you can go to Arbin again, right? There's some really nice arpeggio studies if I can find the right page here. There's major and minor chords in the Carl Fisher edition of the Arbin, probably the most popular one on page 142. It just says major and minor chords, and you can use the C and F there will help this section out. Use any of these really, but that first one up is C, just working on the chord, the arpeggio. Right, the next one down is F, so you may as well use that as well while you're here. Right, take your time. I'm not taking my time right now, and I'm making some practice mistakes, which I would not want to do in my own practice room. So I'll show you what I would do to eliminate some of those mistakes that I just made. Some of that is from not paying attention. Some of that is from trying to go too fast. So what I would do is force myself to calm down and slow the tempo. Make sure I'm playing right in the center of the sound. And then I would gradually work my way back up. So in your practice time, you're going to have these little chips, these little blips, right? But don't accept that as, oh, I want to go on from that. Go back and fix that and figure out why that might have happened, whether it's an embouchure thing, whether it's just not paying attention, whether you're pushing on the air a little too much. But this is your research laboratory. Your practice room should not be a performance. The two are different, right? A performance is one thing. It's kind of an on-demand demonstration of your skill set. The practice room is much more like a laboratory where you're figuring out why. You're asking many, many questions. What am I working on? Why am I working on it this way? What does it sound like? How can it be easier? How can it be more efficient? All that kind of stuff. So going into, let's see, what is that, measure 15 and 16, then be real picky about the articulations in this. Measure 15, big beat 1, big beat 2, you're slurring from the first note to the second note, the 1 and then the 4 and, or big 2 and, same thing in 16. And those are the only slurs, right? Don't add slurs that are not there. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. In 15, on big beat 2 or little beat 4, they do slur into the first B flat. So it's ta, ha, ta, 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 ta. You're slurring there. Pa, pa, pa. So it's 3 and 3 on big beat 2. For me, that was a vowel thing, the A. The vowel didn't go quickly, so let's do that again. You want everything just a little purl as you're practicing, and then you want to repeat that over and over again. The correctness of the repetition is what you're after. Right, and then moving on to 16, it is what I was describing earlier. The first and the second big beats do slur just one time. And you're going from that C back to F at the downbeat of 17. Be careful, especially careful in measure 16, not to add an extra slur between the E and the C. And then tongue that G to E slur. That's an easy one to reverse what's actually printed. It is and then right there at the last part of 16, we have what we call a C7, a C dominant 7th chord. Again, in the Arbin book, if you wanted to work on, isolate just that C dominant 7th chord, which the notes are C, E, G, B flat. On page, let's see here. There's plenty of other chord pages which I can show you, but the chord of the dominant 7th exercise in the Carl Fisher Arbin book is 147. So on page 147, that second one down starts and ends in F major. Okay, it is written with 1 flat, and then the middle, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th measures are all that C7 chord, right? So it's like in the first episode, we have a dual bonus here. We get an F major on the beginning and the end, and we have that C7 chord in the middle, and that sounds like this. And that chord, that C7 chord, occurs in the descending form right there at the end of measure 16, which takes us back into the F at 17. So 15 and 16 one more time with the correct articulation, fairly slow. So step one, make sure you're playing right in the center of each one of those pitches. Make sure you're playing a giant C major arpeggio. All of that is either a C, E, or G until you come to the B flat, which makes the C7 chord C, E, G, B flat, which is descending at the end of measure 16. Be really, really picky and take your time with the articulation there. That's an easy spot to play something that you would like to be there that's not actually there, okay? Then starting in measure 17, we've got some sweeping scales. Each one of the top of those, whether it occurs on big beat 1 or big beat 2, is articulated, right? Starting on the A in measure 17, the second printed 16th note. Each one of them is a part of a scale that sweeps up into an articulated note. Don't allow yourself to slur into the upper note. That's not what it is at any time. It's articulated on big beat 1 and big beat 2. There's not a lot of articulations. There's not a lot of dynamics printed there. There's not any dynamics printed there. But in each case, I'm going to start the beginning of that scale, sweep, I'll call it. I'm going to start that a little lighter, and I'm going to crescendo into the upper note, right? So coming out of 16, I'm going to back off a little bit. Again backing off. Back off one more time. Right? And in context, that gives you a sweeping motion with a little bit of a crescendo, some forward momentum into those upper notes. If I go on. Right, and I've left this one out in measure 19 on purpose because the first 1, 2, 3, 4 of those have been scales, and this time we're sweeping up with an F major arpeggio at the beginning of measure 19. Right there in the second half of that first beat is F, A, C, F, going into big beat 2, right? There's the arpeggio. Then we come down in a scale-like figure back to the C sharp, because right here he's transitioning back to the D harmonic minor. He's going from F major back to the original key of D minor. All right, so 17, 18, 19 into 20. And then we land on the D in beat 20, and we're back into D harmonic minor, which is what he gives us in the entirety of measure 20. We jump up, slur up to the G, and then we descend the entirety of the D harmonic minor scale, yeah? There's that D harmonic minor scale to finish that. So we start measure 13 in F major. We stay in F major for 2 measures. We go to C major, C major, I can't speak English, for 2 measures, including the C major 7 chord at the end of 16. Then we have some sweeping scales, 17, 18, and 19 is the arpeggio, taking us back into D minor. Yeah? So that's measures 13 to 21.